The moment has come for us to usher in a new era where our education system appreciates that competitiveness and productivity depend on such values as innovation, which is nurtured by encouraging curiosity and imagination, and by allowing learners to explore their gifts and talents. The transformation of our national education system is now underway. These recommendations contained in the report of the Working Party shall be implemented not in the future, but beginning now. We must now direct our attention to the implementation of the recommendations set out in the report. The relevant ministries, departments, agencies must quickly familiarize themselves with the report and expeditiously work with all parties, including the Office of the Attorney General, including the Committee of Parliament, both in the National Assembly and Senate, to see to it that every piece of legislation, regulation required is in place to make sure that we don't lose time and we get full value for this tremendous report that has been worked on by these great people with a lot of expertise, a lot of passion, and a lot of commitment. There is a lot to be done in terms of policy, legislation, organizational, strategic, and administrative measures to actualize the recommendation. And I am clear that the ministry, with all the staff and all the other stakeholders, will be able to work on this. The Cabinet Secretary concerned, together with the Attorney General, must collaborate on the framework to make sure that the implementation of the CBC is rolled out as has been agreed. Quality assurance and standards is kept and managed, and a proper framework established to actualize that. Teacher education and management, we've agreed with Nancy here. We've provided resources for promotion of teachers, making sure that we continuously motivate our teachers to be able to do their best. This year we have provided R1 billion for the promotion of teachers to make sure that we continuously move together and provide the best that we can. There are some laws that have been recommended, and I am happy that the two chairs are here. We're going to work with you to make sure that the necessary legislation is worked on, complete with bringing public participation on board to make sure that we all speak the same language with the public. We are also going to work together, as you are all aware, to make sure that technology, we leverage also on technology in the delivery of our education curriculum. I am very happy that technology is part and parcel now of our delivery of government services, and obviously it will be front and center in the delivery of our education. 29-point-something% of our budget this year is going to education. 628 billion shillings is going to education. And we made it deliberate because we needed to sort out many things. We needed to sort out the pupil-teacher ratio, student-teacher ratio. We needed to sort out our TVETs. We needed to sort out the debts that were destroying our universities. I am very happy that we now have a credible plan on how we are going to deal with this. As a result of the investments that we continue to make in education, we've managed to hire, through the Teacher Service Commission, 56,000 teachers in the last 8 months. The highest ever in the history of Kenya. By God's grace, we have a plan to continue until we close the gap because we identified that there was a gap of close to 110,000 teachers. And it was my commitment during the campaigns that we would do this within 2 years. I am hopeful that we will be as near as 100%, as near as possible to 100% in 2 years, so that our children, when they go to school, they will find teachers to teach them. Amongst the many other things that we are working on, you all remember that we also said that education must be inclusive. We must never leave any child behind. We're all aware that there are still many more of our children who are not in school for various reasons, cultural reasons, some other reasons. One of the most pressing is because sometimes there is no food at home and kids cannot go to school. And that is the reason why this year I did instruct the ministry that we want to increase the number of students under our school feeding program from 1.6 million to 4 million. And I'm very happy that we have provided resources to increase our students under the school feeding program so that students can go to school and find a meal. We're going to build capacity around internship. We have worked with the private sector. I am very happy that the private sector have agreed to partner with us, and we are going to provide policy interventions and incentives to make sure that the private sector can engage at least 50,000 young people who graduate from college and TVETs every year in internships that are paid for and that the government of Kenya is going to support by policy to make sure that that actually happens. I'm also very happy that we have also concluded the process of putting together the Open University of Kenya. And this week, I will be granting charter to the National Open University of Kenya. It's a huge milestone. It's something that I worked on when I was the Minister for Higher Education before I was interrupted. But I am very happy that I came to conclude that process. And I want to thank Machogu and team for working around the clock, making sure that all the courses have now been developed, the infrastructure has been put in place, and we will be in concert this week to grant charter to the university that will begin to admit students in September. It's quite a milestone. And going by the periodic briefings that I got in the course of their work, the summary of the findings and recommendations, I am satisfied that the Working Party has used its time well, consulted thoroughly throughout the country and beyond, applied their expertise and technical capacity, and fully met their terms of reference. The evidence-based analysis of every material issue taken up in the report provides ample basis for further action which must commence without delay. We now stand at the threshold of tremendous possibility for our nation. Before us is a strong case to transform our society and catalyze our economy by making necessary interventions in education to make it accessible, equitable, inclusive, and aligned with our aspirations to become a more open, democratic, prosperous nation of free and enlightened citizens. It is time to make education accessible all the way to the highest level, to anyone regardless of background, more fulfilling for both learners and tutors, more accommodating of their psychological needs, less examination-oriented, and more aligned with the aptitudes and aspirations of learners and capable of imparting essential values, including national values and principles of good governance. I have been speaking to the stakeholders in this sector, especially in the Higher Education Loans Board, on the gaps that still exist. I know there are gaps that still exist in fully funding our program. And I want to commit to the education stakeholders that the government of Kenya is going to provide sufficient resources to close all the funding gaps. We will provide the resources to make sure that the funding model that we launched the other day for both our TVETs, colleges, and also universities is fully implemented. I have made a commitment because it is the only resource that we have and we are sure about is the human capital. And therefore, whatever it takes, we cannot allow our universities to slip back into debt. We cannot allow our students in TVET not to acquire the skills and competencies that we have set out in our curriculum. We will work consistently. So I am aware that during the budget, there are some gaps that were not properly addressed, but they will. In fact, if there will be a reason for a supplementary budget, that will be one of them, so that we can close all the gaps. I want to assure our universities and our TVETs that we will make sure that the new funding model that is centered around the student, that going into the future, we will not be giving grants to universities, we will be giving scholarships to students going to universities, so that we can account for the education of every student, and so that we can also desegregate which student requires help more than the other. The old funding model treated children from vulnerable backgrounds the same as children who came from those of us who can pay for academies. The moment has come for us to usher in a new era where our education system appreciates that competitiveness and productivity depend on such values as innovation, which is nurtured by encouraging curiosity and imagination, and by allowing learners to explore their gifts and talents. The transformation of our national education system is now underway. These recommendations contained in the report of the Working Party shall be implemented not in the future, but beginning now. We must now direct our attention to the implementation of the recommendations set out in the report. The relevant ministries, departments, agencies must quickly familiarize themselves with the report and expeditiously work with all parties, including the Office of the Attorney General, including the Committee of Parliament, both in the National Assembly and Senate, to see to it that every piece of legislation, regulation required is in place to make sure that we don't lose time and we get full value for this tremendous report that has been worked on by these great people with a lot of expertise, a lot of passion, and a lot of commitment. Ilikuwa ya muhimu sana tuweze kutatua jambo hili, maneno ya CBC, maneno ya walimu kupatikana shuleni, sasa watoto wetu wa kusoma katika TVET, watoto wetu kusoma katika university, Hiyo ni maneno mzuri sana na nimefurahi sana kwamba tatizo hili tumeweza kulitatua kwa pamoja, na nimefurahi ya kwamba sote watu wa kutoka pande zote, watu wa vyama tofauti tofauti, mirengo, sote tumeungana kuhakikisha kwamba watoto wetu wanapata masomo, na naamini ya kwamba vile vile tumeungana tena kujua ya kwamba wakati tunaweka rasilimali zetu katika kusomesha watoto wa Kenya, vile vile ni lazima tuwe na mpango wakitoka shuleni, wakitoka college, wakitoka university, ni nini watafanya. Mimi nimefurahi tena mwaka huu tuko na mpango mzima, mpango kamili ya vile tutashughulikia ajira ya vijana wetu, nafasi za kazi, na vile vile mchango wao katika kuendesha taifa letu, mchango wao kwa uchumi, kukuza uchumi wa taifa letu la Kenya, na kutengeneza taifa letu liwe taifa bora kwetu sote kama wananchi wa Kenya. Profesa Munafu, mwalimu wangu, nakushukuru sana kwa sababu ya uongozi wako kwa kamati hii maalum kwa mambo ya elimu. Wale maprofesa mlio hapa, wale wote ambao ni education experts mlio hapa, na wale wote mliotoa mchango wenu wa aina mbalimbali kuchangia katika kukamilisha ripoti hii na recommendations ama mapendekezo ambayo mmetoa. Nimewahakikishia ya kwamba mimi nitakuwa mstari wa mbele kuhakikisha ya kwamba mapendekezo yote yaliyopendekezwa tunayatimiza kwa manufaa ya watoto wetu, kwa manufaa ya jamii ya Wakenya, na kwa manufaa ya taifa letu la Kenya, kwa sababu hatuna rasilimali nyingi kama taifa. Rasilimali tulio nayo ya muhimu ni hii ya human capital ama Wakenya wetu, na elimu ndio inatusaidia kuhakikisha ya kwamba taifa letu la Kenya, wafanyikazi na watu wote wa taifa letu la Kenya wako katika hali ambapo wanaweza kuchangia biashara, kuchangia kazi, kuchangia kutengeneza uchumi na kuendesha taifa letu la Kenya mbele. I want to commit to you that I will lead the team that will make sure that the recommendations are implemented. My good deputy here will not sleep until it is done. And he knows what he needs to do. He just needs to speak the truth to everybody. As you have seen our commitment, even before the reports were completed, we were already implementing. So we are walking a different trajectory. Maybe you can accuse us of implementing even when it is not fully baked. But at least it is better than them gathering dust in government offices. I think it's a new paradigm that we were implementing the recommendations as they were coming. So I think if there is any demonstration that we are committed and that we are persuaded that it's the right thing to do, I think you can pick it up from what we have done already. We have already implemented your recommendations on CBC. We have recommended, you have implemented your recommendations on the new education funding model. We are implementing your recommendations on what we should do with university education, on TVET education. And I promise you that whatever is outstanding here, with the same passion, with the same commitment, with the same speed, we are going to make sure that it is implemented. I have full confidence in the ministry leadership, the CS and the PSS and all the other senior officials, that they have what it takes to ensure that they implement these recommendations for the good of our children, for the good of our education system, for the good of our human capital, and for the good of our society and country. I also wish to appreciate all the development partners who have worked with us in this journey, including by providing technical and material support to the Presidential Working Party, our friends from the World Bank, our friends from development partners who have facilitated, supported in many ways for us to get here. Our thanks and appreciations to them, and we look forward to working with them going into the future in making sure that this program is fully implemented. I am very happy that today we can fully fund 100%, close to 45,000 students from vulnerable families. That all of them in our universities, that the children that come from vulnerable backgrounds can be sure that they will go to university and they will not drop out, because the government of Kenya will ensure that they have 100% scholarship. That assurance, that commitment is what is going to create equity in our midst. The rest of us, myself, my deputy here, this good man, and all these people sitting here, these people, nyinyi mnaweza kujitetea hapo kidogo kidogo namna hii. Lakini wale watu wako kwa bottom huko, tafadhali mkubali hawa tuwapatie msukumo. That's how we are going to create an even and an equal, and we are going to create equity in our country. I have said, and let me say it here because this is the correct forum, that to get value from the huge investment we are making in education, if we are investing 630 billion in education, surely we must account for it. We must have a plan on when these people we have invested 630 billion every year, when they get out of the pipeline, when they come out of school, when they come out of college, when they come out of university, what happens to them? It will be irresponsible, maybe reckless for us not to think about what happens to our children when they come out of college. And that is the reason this year we are intentional, we are deliberate on having a plan on how to create jobs. In my boardroom here, I have spent inordinate hours being granular about how many jobs we are going to create, under which program, on which intervention, on which projects, because it is the responsible thing to do. If we are going to invest 630 billion, if we are going to invest 30% of our budget in educating our young people, we must be deliberate on investing in the areas that will create opportunities for them to find work so that their education, their skills, the competencies they have acquired can be meaningful to them, to society, and we can keep a good account of the use of our hard-earned taxes.